Basically, a lot of us are nowadays studies, data and quantity and percentage and figures and data calculations and whatnot. Today, intuition is taking the back seat. Calculations are taking the greater seat. Okay, we will actually start with Anu because I'm sure all of us are eager to hear you. Those who haven't. Instead, there are a few out of these 10 questions. There are a few which can be responded by Anu. I hope you don't mind me mentioning those questions. Brinda has had about 3 of them. Jayakishan has one, and Gautam also has one. A few are for the whole panel. Let's start with this interesting one, Anup. There's someone who said, how can we architects, there are two actually, how can we architects catch up with, you heard that question, the smart technologies and other things, and yet keep up with what we as architects are doing? I assume he or she was meaning creativity or serving the society or whatever else it could be. So that's one. And I know your days when you were working with mud and clay and all those real down to earth, rooted work, and today also you're doing that even though you are part of the director of Real, one of the homegrown multinationals from India, incidentally. Made in India for the world, kind of a company. So how he has navigated between these two extremes, which are seemingly extremes, being part of one of the homegrown MNCs of India and starting with virtually building on the earth. So maybe you can suggest how architects can connect to these seemingly extremities. The other one is an interesting one. I thought again, it's also something which is for everyone, they said. Though I'm picking on the word aspirations more than the power and water, because power and water is already addressed in the smart city missions, of course, very, very clearly mentioned. So how to include basic aspirations? If you can look at these two to begin with, sir.
I'll have a bundled answer for both. One, let me address the aspiration component of it. And just to put this question back to the audience, how many of you know if there is an event, a cultural event which is going on in the city? And what is your source of information?
99% it will be the newspaper or your circle of friends who belong to the same building whom they were requested. Apart from that, yes, IoT also has smartphone as well.
Yeah, so finally, if you take the versions of what we're looking at, communication becomes a key to any form of information transfer, right? That is a fundamental to it. So what's happened through a period of time, the way we communicate has changed. Today you ask one of your younger students to draft a letter, you will have all syntaxes which are WhatsApp-driven syntaxes, right? And Nagraj, and we've grown together in many ways, but he's, I think, the way he writes things today, okay, to what his opinion would be of what we are seeing as written matter which is coming out is very different. So what am I trying to get at? Is that today the mode of communication in which we are transcribing information is very, very different. Okay? Going back to a practice which is as might be 20 years old, 22-year-old practice. When we first did architecture, we were hard bounded by the board and the T-square. What happened probably in the cusp of change was that we were dealing with probably a release 3 or a release 4 of AutoCAD when we first saw computers. And we had restricted access, or not even that in our school. We used to run to the respective offices which we were training to learn that. Even if you ask us to work on the software side of it, today we might be typing commands. But you as a younger generation who now in the last say 5 to 10 years have seen the variation in which the methods of you doing your own work has changed is part of this big IT revolution. It is part of the way the Internet of Things is being communicated to you. Now, how is it relevant? There is a higher sophistication to it when it comes back to architecture, right? So what I'm trying to explain to you all is that there are scales of operations today which is happening. Today, let's imagine that somebody has a site which is going on, might be say 400 kilometers away, and you want to be directly in touch with that, what would you do? Right? You actually hook back through the Internet of Things. You actually connect back differently. You might have webcams which are placed there, you have direct interaction. So what is it trying to do is to make life a little more simpler. As much as it sounds complicated, by saying there's a big data, there's mining of data, a whole lot of things, it is probably making you more efficient. It is giving you higher value of time. Now, in this process, what's also happening is that your ability to actually secure, clear-cut working data becomes important. And we've seen this as a transition from the organization which we come from, that we've seen that dramatic level of change. Now you ask, what is the human value of that? I think that was one of the extended questions to this. I'll just take an example of Tel Aviv, which is the youth capital. I'm saying it beats with the age index of probably 23 or 24. If you take Tel Aviv as a case today, that 90% of Tel Aviv is completely wired, and the ability to socially interact is much more higher than what we today look at. So today we might, okay, as urban designers, we take a step back and say, where is the space for it? Now, there is a different concept of space. The space must be, what you say, Maya, this huge information highway, which is the space in which you operate. But when you actually scale that back and ask whether there are human needs, yes, most of these are offering you human needs because there are spatial constraints or constricts which work around. So today it could be park, it could be events, it could be festivals which you are attending. Unless you are in information of that, or let's say today let's say you book a ticket in Tel Aviv. I'm not privy to that information, but I've heard of people saying that if you have a ticket, immediately tells you what time to reach, how do you reach, how simple it is to reach, what routes you can reach. So how does this happen? It happens because there is a base platform of data which is available, and that data, you are linked to that. So finally what happens in this whole process is that you become a binary, right? And sometimes we assume on the human side of things, have I become this little binary in this big data envelope? But that's not the case. Today, the way the younger generations are going to get wired will be very, very different from what we would have seen 10 to 15 years ago. And I think that the more we believe that this is the future, I think it becomes far more simpler to move things forward.
What he has just said, yeah, how ICT or information has helped us. Earlier, say, the father-in-law or mother-in-law of somebody have written a letter, snail mail, that they are coming on a particular Sunday. So by the time the letter reached, they left for vacation without knowing that they are coming. So times have changed after 2 decades. They sent an email saying that we are coming on Sunday. So on Saturday, the husband says, come on, let's pack up and go out because they are coming. So earlier they left accidentally, okay, without knowing that they are coming. Now this time they have left by design. Okay, they know that they are coming. So it is all how we use that information. Okay, the information is like a tool. It's like a kitchen knife. You use it either to cut the vegetables or cut some throats. You can do that. So it's a tool, and how you use it is up to us. There have been tools earlier. It took hundreds of years or a lot of time to build the railway network. For example, people were traveling by bullock carts before that. So if those people said that railways will take 50 years to develop, there is no use discussing them, we would not have been having them today. Airports are being built on a daily basis across the country. In the next 5 to 6 years, we'll be able to travel to small towns like Hosur, Mysore. Okay, you will be able to travel to a lot of these destinations by air. And by that time, because of the economy of scale, they'll all be cheap or affordable. So it's a matter of time that we should have patience, and smart cities is only one of the developmental aspects. Like any other developments that have taken place. So that we should keep in mind. IoT is basically for machines. It's a machine-to-machine interaction. Whereas ICT, which is information communication technology, is humans to machines. That's what we have been using on a smartphone, the interface, okay? A lot of penetration of this technology happened only in India for a very short time. I mean, somebody said, what about common people? There was an official survey where they said in Bangalore, out of every 100 people, it's only 2 people who don't have a mobile phone. Okay? There are mobile phones who, for everyone except probably either you should be very, very poor, can't afford one, or don't need, or you should be very, very rich, that you don't have to carry, somebody else will carry it for you. So that has become, if we can live without that, I mean, there are some, in no time now, currently it is all free Wi-Fi. Probably in the next 5-10 years, it will be Wi-Fi free, which means some resorts are like they offer, there is no telephone, there is no TV. They'll also say that there is no Wi-Fi in this resort. You will be free. So there will be times where things will go to a crescendo, to the peak, and they'll stabilize, they'll come down and they'll stabilize like any other technology. It could be hyped up today, but maybe 10-15 years down the line, it will stabilize and reach the realistic levels. Okay, so that's as far as people. Most of the smart city mission, at least in India, is people-centric. That's why the social aspect has a lot of focus. In fact, the government is not talking about technology at all. Maybe 5 to 10% of technology. Most of the other aspects are equality or literacy or employment, empowerment, whatever. So there are a lot of people-focused schemes only in India because that's where we lack. But otherwise, smart cities obviously have to be people-centric or citizen-centric. Okay, there were at least two or three citizen engagement programs in Bangalore. One of it, which Brindanam has projected, I was part of that. There are very few people asking questions. There are very few people who are giving opinions. There are maybe they are all followers of the corporators who are there, mostly. There are very few citizens. Because the engagement itself is rejected. I mean, people are not interested. They want engagement, but when it comes to it, when they have to attend something or send some opinions, they probably ignore. Okay, so that's something that we should keep in mind. The last one, which probably I should address, is the maintenance of smart cities and IoT. It's not easy. There is something called command and control center which will come into picture, like our BBMP. Probably there will be a digital administration or a virtual administrative office. Half of the decisions will be taken by intelligence, artificial intelligence, and some may have to be overridden by human intervention. But you need specific training for that, like any other system. I mean, if you have to run a water treatment plant, you need training for that. So similarly, if you have to run a command center for a smart cities, or it can be even a campus or a community, as I said, neighborhood, you need some specific training that you need to. And that's not rocket science. It's not flying an aircraft. It's very easy. Like whatever you are operating at home, at office, a few technologies, it's as simple as that. Some of them will be very user friendly. Okay. Anything else I missed?
Come back. There is
Come back. Thank you.
Yes. There's only depth of implementation. And I personally have stopped saying it because I've also said it many times in the last 50 years. But now implementation seen in India is improving compared to earlier days. There's far more implementation happening. It's a good sign. So there are positive signals about what's happening. But something else to look at, we Indians generally are very good in critiquing. It's important to critique. I personally believe, and many of us believe, it's important to critique, it's important to question. But what is equally important is to be constructive. So I just want to add that line, why we need to critique the smart cities. We also can be constructive about the smart cities. The challenge is how we balance between the two. If you over criticize, then we are not constructive. If you blindly get on with the constructive path, and not look at the critique, then we will be falling into already incidentally Brinda has mentioned a few of those things where some of these ideas have not become great success, and we do know that there is a softer continuation of JNNURM at certain other level. So the same kind of fate also may happen here 5 years down the line. So there are ways of making smart city work. You have to look at both. And I think that's where the human values which one mentioned lies, in my personal opinion. I think between critiquing and constructing is a human value somewhere there. I think Jayakaji, you remember the point. You can also add other points. It's not that you should really respond to that one specific one.
I think there was just one direct query which was relating to
the mess in Whitefield area and other areas, and they said, how does IoT help us in?
Yeah. No, this was TOD and Marthahalli and
etc.
And the road and Old Madras Road and Ring Road already being. I don't think that is really TOD, because that's essentially something which is happening without planning. There is a road, people want access, they've kind of developed along. When I put that point out, what I wanted to actually point was, you have a metro now, and world over, the way they typically plan using transport as one of the critical criteria for planning spaces is to say that you need to make the metro stations more accessible and therefore densify the corridor along the metro, which is a non-road based transport system. And you also can't just blindly say, okay, take 1 kilometer on either side and your FAR was 2 and now your FAR going forward is 4, and therefore the whole thing becomes like one mass of concrete. You need to figure out that there is 30 kilometers of metro, and there are requirements for people to also access open spaces using the metro, access commercial spaces using the metro, educational institutions using the metro. So it is an involved planning exercise to figure out who are your users of this transit mode and why do they travel, and therefore make sure that all of those needs are in some way within that 1 kilometer or 1.5, whatever you decide as a as a planner and government sitting together, saying this is how I want this metro to serve people who are traveling for whatever their purpose of that trip is. So that would be TOD, and there is an element of being able to raise finances through that, because you're giving some people some additional privilege in terms of additional built-up space, etc. So you could raise finances through that, which will fuel your future development of industry, infrastructure, because you're anyway constrained otherwise. But the way developments are coming along Old Madras Road or the Ring Road, I don't think is the way to go in terms of doing TOD. In fact, you're just wandering away already scarce resource which you have. The other points, I think also there seems to be a general misconception that smart city is largely IT. Actually, if you look at, I always look at all of this from a finance angle. So if you take any city and the budget which has been allotted or approved under the smart city, not more than 10% would be IT, and 90% of it would be actually hard physical infrastructure, and that is in some way limited to a smaller part of the city rather than spreading it thin. So for whatever reason, good, bad, that's a debatable point on whether it should be in that small ABD area and what could be or should be taken up. But IT, give or take, it's just about 10%. And the scheme very clearly says that you give me 2 IT solutions which does not just impact that small area, but it should impact the city as a whole. So, in some way it is building on what Anup said earlier, which is, you have to now look forward and accept the fact that IT and the way information is being collected has to be utilized in 2 ways. One is citizens need to have better delivery of services, and governments are notorious at not providing that unless there is a very clear auditable trail of what is being done. So, for want of anything else, I think IT is today the only solution to make sure that the citizen services are delivered properly. And most cities, if you were to analyze whatever 90 odd cities which have been approved, most cities, one of those solutions would be an e-governance platform which generally improves the way you interact with government. So whether it's paying property taxes or getting building approvals or paying your bills for BESCOM, water supply, whatever it is, which as an individual, which you have to do either on a monthly or an annual basis. And today I don't know how many of you go to a bank to do banking. You would probably be doing 90% of your banking just using your phone or your internet. It's the same with government. Why should you even have to walk into a government office to do all your transactional business, which is happening every month, every year? You know that it's going to happen. There's no need for you to go and interface with government. So that is the same premise with which I think these e-governance solutions have been put forward. There are also some other. The second solution could be either solid waste or